The victim in this case is your daughter, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I've already indicated it was a sex offense, and you've not had any sex offender treatment.
No, ma'am.
All right, I don't have any other questions. Mr. Frater.
We are about to watch the parole hearing of a cockroach who was sentenced to 3 years for doing what he did to his daughter. Let's jump in.
Classified as a first felony offender. You're currently serving a 3-year sentence. You were sentenced in Tangipahoa Parish, December of 2022 for indecent behavior with a juvenile, 1 count. You have a parole eligibility date, November 2nd, 2023. You don't earn good time, so your full term date is November 3rd, 2025. Does all that sound correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, would you answer Mr. Tillis, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. How are you, Mr. Bozier?
How you doing this morning?
Doing okay. How long have you been? Well, how long have you been in?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. How far did you go in school?
I graduated from high school, 12th grade.
Oh, great. Have you had any write-ups since you've been in?
No, sir.
Did you take any courses while you were in?
No, sir.
You didn't take any courses while you were in?
No, sir.
I guess they don't have them there, do they?
No, sir.
I got you. What do you think you're going to do should you be granted parole? If you get out, what's going to happen?
I'm gonna go home and take care of what I got to take care of in the yard and take care of the yard, go to church like I used to go and everything, you know.
This was something that just happened. You're
Yes, sir. It was a mistake. Yes, sir.
feel a lot different about it now.
Oh, yes, sir. I've been here too long.
I see. I see. Okay, I have no more further questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Garland, the victim in this case is your daughter, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I've already indicated it was a sex offense, and you've not had any sex offender treatment.
No, ma'am.
All right, I don't have any other questions. Mr. Frater.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, well, let's see, Mr. Bozier, we'd like to hear, so let me for the record state that there is opposition in the record. We have opposition from the district attorney, from the sheriff's office, and there was no comment by your sentencing judge. We'd like to hear from your sister, Sheila Bowers. You're still on mute.
Okay, what about now?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead and tell us what you'd like us to know.
Good morning, and I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to speak on my brother's behalf. I've been thinking about this all day, or all morning, all night. I've been trying to figure out what to say. There's so many things, so many good things I could say about Garland. How he is helpful. He's always helped people. It didn't matter what it was, what that needed to be done. He did it. And he was the most popular person in school. He ran with the popular kids. No one ever knew I existed, but he he's had some educational, with him being in SPED all of his life. He's had a hard time through school, but he managed to get through the 12th grade in special education throughout his whole years. He's had a lot of just, trouble with writing and learning, and, he's always had supervision as far as, helping him write, helping him learn, teaching him things. My mom, she has helped with his banking situation, his money situation, because he was on disability, and she was his payee. And at this appointed time, you know, I just think he had a moment of weakness. We've been going to church. We was raised in church all of our lives. And he attended church. He was also an usher in our church that we attended. And he does a lot of go to community, and, you know, if they needed help somewhere, like going to somebody to help out, he was always there to help. And I just feel as though that I've talked to him I've been constantly talking to him throughout this whole time. And he has shown many times of being remorseful for what had happened. Like I said, it was a moment of weakness for him. He would have never done this, but he had a lot going on at that time. And I just think it just crowded his judgment, and he did what he did, and not, you know, and he realized what he did was wrong after the fact. So, you know, if granted parole, the church community, me and my family, we have agreed to, you know, we're going to try to help him. We're going to pray with him to be able to, you know, strive to be better and to make sure that nothing like this will ever happen again. Thank you.
And thank you. We appreciate your sharing that with us. And Paul wants to speak also.
My dad was always there for me through tough times. And I really appreciate all he done for me this past few years. And I just hope he gets off on parole, because I really miss him. We all miss him as a family. And we've been praying too, as my aunt said. That's it.
Okay, well, thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it. Mr. Garland, is there anything?
Yes.
Yes, the sergeant's not in the room with you anymore, right?
No.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to say to us before we vote?
I just sorry for what I done, you know, I didn't mean it, you know.
Okay. Thank you much, sir. Are we prepared to vote? I'll move for executive session. Can we roll call vote?
Joe Renaud.
Yes.
Steve Prater.
Yes.
Chuck Tibbs.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Bojay will be in executive session for a moment to discuss confidential matters. All right, Mr. Bojay, we're back in session and we are prepared to vote, and Mr. Tillett will be voting first.
I vote to deny.
Mr. Prater.
I concur.
Mr. Bojay, my vote also is to deny your parole this morning based on the law enforcement opposition that I spoke about earlier. So today, sir, you've received a unanimous vote to deny your parole. We wish you well. Good luck to you, sir. That concludes our business. It's 11:26 a.m. We will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just can't. This is insane. We live in an insane world. How can you sexually assault your biological daughter and get a 3-year sentence, and then he's immediately eligible for parole? What is going on? What's worse, if we had to line it all up? Is it the cockroach? Is it the DA? Is it the judge? Is it the legislator? Is it the ridiculous parole interview, if you want to even call it that? What did he say? How long have you been locked up? What programs did you take? How do you feel about your crime? And what was his answer? Oh my gosh, I'm going to have nightmares of his answer and this cockroach's face. If you could take someone's soul and then draw what it would look like, this is it. Someone who harms their own child, this is what it would look like. You couldn't have a more, I mean, is the moment I saw him, I knew that he had done something like this. Isn't that interesting how that happens? How the wickedness can sometimes emanate outside of and just, this is what his answer was, and forgive me for putting you through this.
Oh, yes, sir. I've been here too long.
I see.
I've been here too long, with this smile on his face. Oh, fright, that's who I forgot to add what's worse too. Or his sister, his supporter. What was she rambling about? Oh my gosh, and I have to forewarn you, we're gonna have someone show up later for similar crime who would actually compete with her, but she is worse. I mean, oh, he was so popular. He ran with the popular boys like 860 years ago in high school, and I don't know why he's locked up. And then he brings his daughter. She brings his daughter there, and it's like you just the idea that they would bring his daughter to this parole hearing and plead for him to get out is just even further proof of how broken this system is. How broken. In what world does a DA and a judge do that? You know what it is? And I've seen the comment before, and it makes so much sense. The DA, all they care about are wins and losses on their loss column. They don't really care much about anything else. And so that when it comes for election season, they can say they won 99.8% of their cases. But when you go down into the weeds of it, if you actually looked at what the plea deals they're agreeing to, you would say, wow, this DA is horrible. They don't care about our children. They don't care about the community safety. They don't care. It's a win for them. They can clear up the courts. They can clear the dockets off their list. They can put a win on the calendar. They can go to sleep and say, yeah, whew, I got another win in the win column. And it's this system that just continues. Gosh, every time I look at this cockroach, I get the I can't even. And for anyone to think that this was the first time, that this was his first victim, I got a bridge to sell you. We're gonna watch a few more hearings that are quite disturbing, hearings where the offenders got probation, where the offenders are still lying, and tonight's going to be a tough night. And so that we'll jump in.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so, Mr. Kasnowitz, you're classified as a second felony offender. You're currently serving a 7-year sentence. You were sentenced initially in January of 2019 to 7 years for indecent behavior with a juvenile. You were given probation, however, that was revoked for a new felony conviction in July of 2019 for possession of methamphetamines. You have a parole eligibility date, which was March the 16th of this year. You don't earn good time, and you have a full term date, which is December 15th of 2025. Is that all sound correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Before I get started, I want to ask you some questions related to substance abuse. Were you using heroin, painkillers, or other opiates before your incarceration?
Yes, ma'am.
What was your drug of choice?
Heroin.
Did your substance use contribute to your incarceration?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have a sobriety or relapse prevention plan in place for whenever you get out of jail?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll ask you about that. Okay, let's see. So, how long you been in jail?
5 years and 4 months.
So almost 5.5 years of your 7-year sentence.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you are classified as a second offender, so the first offense was the sex offense.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, according to the record, you were about 30 years old at the time of that offense.
Yes, ma'am.
And how old was the victim?
I think she was 14.
And we got a letter from you that claims you were on drugs due to an ankle injury.
Yes, ma'am. I just had my ankle reconstructed. I was ran over by a car. So I was on Dilaudid at the time.
You were drinking?
That also.
This was the day you had gone fishing?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, in your letter, you claimed you only touched her in one area, but the record doesn't confirm your story.
Ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Her story don't match, but maybe you don't remember because you were loaded.
Yes, ma'am.
It,
Ma'am.
that'd be it.
I mean, I might have, I really don't recall the most of the day, but I do,
All right.
I do
All
know
right.
that I did.
That's all I need. And then one day after you were sentenced for the sex offense, I think you were arrested for violation of a protective order.
That was actually during court.
And so what happened there?
I asked the mother why they were trying to ruin my life.
And you were to have
Grandmother.
contact with the victim or her family.
Yes, it was the grandmother, not the mother. It was the grandmother at court.
And what would make you do that?
I was just upset at the time. I don't know why. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just really upset. A lot of it had to do with the probation office. They were telling me that they were pushing it and all sorts of stuff, and they wanted to give me parole, probation, but then she kept pushing for it to put me in jail, and that's why I asked her why she was trying to ruin my life.
Well, you did get probation, didn't you?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
got a 7-year sentence. It was suspended and you were placed on 3 years active supervised probation with special conditions.
Yes,
And one
ma'am.
of those conditions was probably the protective order.
Yes, ma'am. I guess I didn't know honestly that.
Listen, I
Yes,
don't know.
ma'am.
I'm
Yes,
just
ma'am.
stating the facts right now. So you have multiple arrests in your record, 2004, 2005, again, 2010, that would indicate a substance abuse problem, driving under the influence for those
Yes, ma'am.
arrests. And in 2018, there was drug paraphernalia. And when I look at your record, we get some pretty extensive information as we prepare for these cases. And as I look at the record, I see where, while there at Bayou Dorcheat, you did complete part of the sex offender treatment program.
Yes, ma'am.
And so phase 1 and 2, I think it's called.
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't finish that program. Why is that?
They needed me to work at the auto shop. It was an institutional need, I guess, is how they worded it.
Okay. And so what did you get out of the first 2 phases?
I did the risk factors. I learned about just not putting myself in certain situations that I put myself in. The drugs, the drinking, the denial. I shouldn't deny the things. I shouldn't blame everybody else and everything. I needed a lot of that.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because just from our conversation this morning, it seems like you're putting some blame elsewhere also. So I noticed, I mentioned the driving under the influence arrest. You and I have talked about your substance abuse after your ankle injury and surgery and what have you. Have you ever had any substance abuse treatment?
No, I was going to take one here, but they had put me at the auto shop because of that.
Yeah, okay, to the job. All right, well, I want you to know, I guess they really need you because we do have quite a few letters in our record from the folks in the automotive shop and the operations division. I think we got one recently too from Lieutenant Cummings there. Sergeant Carter from the sheriff, Sheriff Parker from Major Reynolds, and Captain Tucker all speak very highly of you and your work.
Yes, ma'am.
You must be good at what you do.
I try my best at it.
So let me just tell you what I'm thinking, Mr. Kasnowitz. I think you need to finish the sex offender program and substance abuse treatment.
That's fine. I agree with that also.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Okay, that's all the questions I have. I don't know, my colleagues have any questions?
Tell me about the day that you showed up at probation and parole and you were on meth and you had meth in your car.
Okay, it was I got sentenced the following day. The next day after I got sentenced, I went to the probation office and I was telling I know this sounds bad, but I was telling myself I'm gonna get high one more time before I go on probation because I know I would have to be, done with everything. And I did too much, I guess, and they saw that I was high, so they asked to search my car. They went in my car and they found a little piece of meth about. It was just a little piece, but it was actually this might sound crazy also, but this was one of the best things that could have happened to me. If it wasn't for this, I'd have never learned about the situation. I'd have never learned that my self-worth. I would have never learned that I could do it without being on drugs. So.
Good to hear you say that.
No questions.
All right, let's see, we have, we'll hear from your family. We do have the victim has dialed in, Miss Haley, and we'll hear from her at the appropriate time. But first, we'd like to hear from your mother, Miss Anita. Miss Anita, we did get your letter and we know how proud you are. You indicated very eloquently how proud you are of his accomplishments. So what else would you like us to know this morning?
I had not seen Max happy since he was a child, but now I see him as he even smiles. So he has made dramatic changes. He's had great role models while being incarcerated at every stop of the way. And he wouldn't be who he is if he weren't in there. I have a new place that I bought a piece of property and a trailer on, and we're ready to see him home and enjoy his life. He has plans which he had never had before in his life. He now has plans for his future. He has a brand new profession, having learned while there, and it's with the police cars and how to set the lights up. And now in the automotive shop, he's really flourished. And it's a tremendous change. And he's my rock. And he's a positive person. So he's kept me going through all of this. And the change from the first day to the last day, he's never been angry or upset, honestly, that he's shown me. But now I see that he's pretty much happy and positive and planning to the future with me and Susie.
All right,
Thank
thank you. Susie, would you like to say some words?
Just to add to what she said, I feel like sorry, I didn't realize this would be so hard. I feel like there's two different kinds of people when they're incarcerated. They're the ones that are angry and show a lot of resentment and never own up to what they did. And then there's ones like Max, sorry, who have taken this and made a positive out of it. He's grown tremendously. He's become the man that we always knew he could be. I know he had a terrible past, and that is a lot to do with drugs and alcohol. And we're 100% committed to
giving him and having him earn the support and all the resources that he can to continue on this positive path and be, a positive citizen for Louisiana. So, and I did want to add that I work for North Shore Humane Society, which is a humane society in Covington. And when an animal gets adopted, our, saying, our happy ending is that we'll never see them again. They'll have a great life and they'll move on to better things. So I did want to mention that we hope that you guys never see him again. And we appreciate your consideration and your time and considering him for parole.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Miss Haley, could we hear from you now, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you pronounce your last name?
Was my father's last name. It's French. Yes, ma'am.
What would you like us to know?
I would like you to know that although from what I've heard, it sounds like he is doing better, which I'm glad of. But however, I do think there's more that he can do while he's in there. Maybe take some sex offender classes and, get some more help, because you can get as much help. You can always have more help. And I do think that would be good for him to take some sex offender classes and some AA drug abuse classes. I think that would be really good, because the fact that I was 12 years old having to go to a court case and still have not even heard him admit that he did what he did is hurtful, and it has been haunting me. I had a daughter. I have a baby of my own. She's almost 3 months old. And looking at her, I see this case, and I think that there's something more that can be done here. Because, I mean, I get it. He's doing better. That's amazing, Your Honor. Trust me, I'm glad he's doing better, but I do want him to get some more help before he gets released, because I have had years of counseling, years of healing from everything that he put me through. And I know it was all in one day, but the dragged on court cases, continuance after continuance, was stressful on me at 12 and 13, Your Honor.
Well, Haley, thank you so much for taking the time to dial in and speak with us this morning. It's very admirable, your remarks. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, ma'am, Your Honor. Of course. Like I said, I do hear that he's doing better. I hear that what he said, how he's changed and he's open to no longer denying. And I'm proud that he's doing that. That does make me feel good. That makes me feel better. But I do want him to take some classes before he is released. That is one request that I do have. Because it can't all be blamed on substances and alcohol. There are classes for him to take, and I would prefer he took those just so he can get extra help.
Yes,
Do you understand, Your Honor?
I do. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Lieutenant Cummings, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, ma'am. So just to give you a brief history of me, third generation law enforcement, been with the Sheriff's Department now for 12 years and work directly with inmates. Currently over the automotive shop. Just to kind of touch on the classes that he has not taken, I will partially take the blame because he is such a benefit to our department. With that being said, I mean, being selfish, I would not like Max to see go, but from my situation, I can't speak on Max's past. I don't know Max prior to being here. But like I said, I've dealt with numerous inmates throughout my life. Max is not your common inmate. He's not your common person that you deal with. Do I feel that he's deserving? I do. Do I feel that half the department here, including Sheriff Parker, our previous Sheriff Sexton, they all feel that he's deserving of having a second chance. I can't vouch for what Miss Haley went through. Like I said, I don't know Max previous to here. but he is not your typical person. He's been in situations here to where, you know, he's with our work release dorm. And unfortunately, through the prison system, there's drugs, there's everything else that he does come in direct contact with, that I have personally seen it set up to where, you know, Max had the opportunity to mess up. Max has had the opportunity to screw up while he's here. And he's took every situation and knows how to steer himself away from it. So he has all the tools. He has, in my opinion, all the tools to be able to avoid those situations. And I feel like live a productive life outside of here. And also, this is the first time that I've ever stuck up for anyone. And, you know, and whatever little bit I can do to help. Like I said, he's been in situations here to where he knows. Sounds like he had a rough childhood, a rough past, and bad decision making, but I believe those times are behind him.
Good, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. And you're right, I don't think we've seen you before, so
Right.
we take to heart what you said in the letters that are contained in the record. Max,
Yes, ma'am.
you heard, I want to ask you for your statement, but I want it stated on the record clearly that you indicated to me when I asked the question that I already knew the answer to. I asked you how old was the victim, and you said 14, and you heard, and the record will reflect that she was 12 at the time.
Okay, I honestly didn't know that. I thought she was 14.
Okay. So the better answer would have been, I don't know.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is the opportunity for you to make a statement, if you'd like to do so before we vote.
I think a lot of it's been touched. I just want y'all to know that, you know, this was probably the best thing that did happen to me, offering me the classes and everything that I was able to accomplish and learning about my self-worth from being here. If it wasn't for this, then I'd probably be 6 feet in the ground now. So y'all, the system does work for a certain few, and I believe I'm one of them.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that about 6 feet under, because I did make a note in my record that prison probably saved your life.
It did. If it wasn't for this, I know I would be, and my family would be without a brother or a son.
So I'm glad you recognize that. And so if I say to deny your parole, then Lieutenant Cummins gets to keep you working in the shop so you can train somebody else to take your place.
Yes, ma'am, that would be the situation.
Yeah, but let me tell you what I'm thinking. I'm going to go ahead and vote because you're my case, and I'll vote first. You know, I did take note in the record of the how well thought of you are there at the facility.
Yes, ma'am.
But I do believe that you need a little few more tools in your toolbox to help you be truly successful when you get out. And I've already kind of hinted at that. My vote would grant you conditionally. I want to grant you parole conditionally based on the positive remarks by the sheriff and the facility staff. That's the sole reason for my vote. But only after you complete the rest of the sex offender class and the substance abuse treatment program. I think you can do those. I think Mr. Johnson has indicated perhaps you could do those simultaneously. So once you successfully complete those programs, you can go be released to your moms.
Okay, thank you so much.
Now, after release, this is some special conditions I want to add to your requirements. You know, you still have to comply with the contract, the sex offender contract. You know, you still got to do that. Whatever conditions may be recommended by the treatment program, you follow those recommendations after. You're to attend 2 AA meetings a week. You're to submit to regular random alcohol testing or drug testing by your parole officer. You're to have no contact whatsoever with the victim or any member of her family. And I want you to perform 4 hours of community service work each month.
Okay.
That's my vote. I'm just one. Mr. Prater.
I concur with that, and what impacted me the most was the victim statement, victim talking, and the fact that she was willing to go along with this as long as you got some more, took some more classes and got some substance abuse, help, and you definitely need that. So I'll concur.
Mr. Tillis?
I concur.
All right, we're giving you a chance, Mr. Kasnowitz. Good luck to you. And look, as your sister says, we don't want to see you again.
You won't, I promise you that.
All right, good luck.
Thank you.
All right, I think, does that conclude our business at Webster? Thank y'all for accommodating. We're sign out at 10:46.
So now what?
Just more madness. And you know, the second when Mr. Natsa said, how old was she? And he said, I think 14 years old. I knew, and maybe you did as well, I knew that she was at least 2 years younger. At least. She ends up being 12. You know, it's something we see with these offenders all the time. They think adding a couple of years will make it better. And then when the victim comes to speak and she states the facts of the case, how old she was, then Miss Renatza comes on to say, you know, for the record, when I asked you, which I'm happy Miss Renatza did state that, but I wonder if she would have if the victim didn't state her age. But he was 30 years old when he did that to a 12-year-old child. And then the DA gives him probation? What is going on? I just can't. And this, you know, there's no age that you should get probation. But it wasn't, this guy had 3 DUIs before this offense even occurred. This guy had a criminal record. This guy, this cockroach. And they gave probation. Why? And you hear from the survivor, you hear her stand up and say, I had to struggle through court over a year. She had to go to court over and over and over from the age of 12 to the age of 13. And after she goes through all of that, a judge still says, I'm going to give you probation? What? What did we hear? Remember, he's only locked up because he violated his probation. He showed up to rehab with meth in his car, and thank goodness they finally got him. You know, they could have let it go. They could have said, all right, he's going to his rehab program. They only found a little bit, you know, but the police are probably just done. You know, police, they can do their job. They can do their job. They can do their job. But if the DA continues to let them in the street, how does it make sense? Why is it that someone who can think rationally, who, you know, we don't have our law degrees. We don't have our PhDs with the algorithm. We don't have, you know, we're just simple sheeple folk. We need to be guided by our smart, brilliant leaders about how things should be run. But let's just use some, you know, I know we shouldn't do this, but let's just think a little bit. Should someone who's 30 years old who sexually assaults a 12-year-old who has forget even who has a record, just period, done. And she shows up to court for a year fighting, and then you come to the conclusion that it's okay, probation. And this is after he violates the restraining order by, and he plays it, well, I told him, why are you trying to ruin my life? Yeah, I'm sure he did much more than that to get the violation order. There's no way that probation, but you don't want to go to trial? Seemed to me like she was willing to show up to court for everything. You know, these things are just absolute madness. They could have probably have gotten him. So we see a father does it to his own daughter that gets just 3 years. We see now this cockroach who, with a long record, who does it to a 12-year-old. And you know what? He gets up and he lies at the parole hearing. And then when he's called out for lying, he lies again by stating, "I really had no idea." And that is such a blatant lie. And then it was like, of he fought this in court. He would have heard her age hundreds of times. He would have known exactly how old she was. I assume from the day he met her, but especially now. And you're going to let him get away with it? And we see his family supporters, you know, the whole thing, the classic. It's pretty classic. We're going to see the worst. Wow. But, and where's the DA? Nowhere in sight. They have her come up here. And, you know, it's interesting. It's always after you hear, you know, his sister, "Oh, I'm so good. It's great with our adoption. We tell people," you know, the whole thing. And as soon as she's done talking, then the survivor comes up and says something that actually has some backbone, that actually has some soul in it, that has some meaning. It happens every time. But the DA is not here. You know, I had thought the first bunch of hearings we saw, the DA was showing up for all of them. I thought, wow, maybe this new governor, new parole board, they mandated, they're asking the DAs to show up. But no, when it's children, no, they don't show up. When a father does it to his biological, no, they don't show up. When a 30-year-old man does it to 12, no, they won't show up to that. It's just a child. Don't tell anyone. It's unreal. And remember this too. Mr. Notzer brought up, in the letter, you wrote that you only touched her in one area, and that's not true. This is the letter that he would have wrote when applying for parole, not something a long time ago. And then she immediately follows up by making an excuse for him. By saying, "But you were probably so intoxicated you don't even remember." Why are you making excuses for him? The guy is a roach. He's a liar. And I don't care how many, you know, you want to talk this about him, that about him. You did not make him own up to what he did. And that is an insult to the survivor. That is an absolute insult. They should have reprimanded him for lying to the parole board multiple times in one hearing. And instead, we saw this fest of ooh. Probably wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it. I know I wouldn't. And we'll move to another hearing. Now, this one that we're about to watch, we're going to watch two parts. We're going to go back in the past to 2020. We're going to see Mr. Roche. And it's a hearing where Mr. Roche interviewed him because it was during the COVID. So we don't see him. I'm going to fast forward certain parts. It's a kind of weird hearing. And then we're going to fast forward to today to see him. So with that, let's jump in.
He was sentenced September 13, 16, indecent behavior with a juvenile. He received a 7-year sentence, was afforded probation. However, that was revoked November 2nd, 2017. His parole eligibility date was January 19th, 2020. He does not earn good time, and he has a full term date of September 19th, 2024. And so I'll turn it over to Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This one was an easy one for me, Ms. Fernandez. My next door neighbor is named Roban. Mr. Roban is at the Madison Parish Jail. I interviewed him on July 15, 2020 at 12 noon. He's currently 29 years old. His parole date is January 19, 2020, and he's not eligible for good time. His full term date is September 19, 2024. Also in the hearing was Deputy Simmons. I had a very positive interview with Mr. Roban at the beginning. He was convicted in 2016. He got a suspended sentence and was revoked in 2017, and the judge reinstated the 7-year sentence for indecent behavior with the juvenile. He had a moderate risk assessment score. After 3 years of incarceration, he had no programs, no $100 pre-release, no anger management, no substance abuse, and most important, he had no substance abuse program. In the interview with Sal at next point, when I asked him about his disciplinary issues, he said he had a disciplinary issue in December of 2019, a number 10 for fighting. And he couldn't exactly remember exactly when it was. So I asked the correction staff at Madison to verify that. They looked in the record and they did verify that he had a Class B write-up for fighting in December of 2019. He went to disciplinary court. He was found guilty. He lost 4 weeks of visitation and received 4 extra weeks of duty. All information on the disciplinary write-up was verified by the Madison Parish staff, at which point I ended the interview telling Mr. Roban that we had a policy that when we saw an offender for a parole hearing, we'd like to see that offender right up free for 12 months. He didn't meet that standard, and probably I would vote to deny him because of that disciplinary write-up, which was a Class B write-up. Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. At this time, we'll hear from Ms. Ditraz. Ms. Mary, would you unmute your microphone and tell us what you'd like us to know?
Hi guys, as you know, I am married, H.R. Jude is my husband's cousin, so technically mine. There's some things I want to say about him, which I don't know are appropriate. But I will start off with who Jude was. 10 years ago when I met him, he was a person with major anger problems, and he still has a bit of anger issues, honestly. He didn't have any sense of responsibility. He believed that everybody owed him something. It was always what he could get out of it, what was in his direction. Over the last 10 years, we fought many times, literally cutting himself off on the porch. He had just said that he got to take other things, also do other mainly he's not the person but she didn't make everything else a chance, and he has apologized to her and tried to make up for things that he said to multiple people. There's multiple people that come to me and they're like, well, with letters receiving and things like that, we believe that he's trying to make effort to change. He has been working on mental issues with me. It's difficult for him to be able to have somebody to speak with, honestly, that he's comfortable with, that he's able to open up his word, whether being outside my for so long. I myself have a couple of issues, which not everyone does, it's not about me. But I do know that those are charges that I shared with him that he has found has helped. We have been through multiple, just like one that he's comfortable with and is able to work through. He did call me after he spoke with Mr. Roche, and he did think that he was very nervous about the whole thing. I was like, why do you look, he's like, I was just freaking out. I was so nervous about it. It happens, you just gotta work through it, you call him about it. He thought that he has a mental health, so he's working on the mental health, and he has been trying to work with anger. It is not exactly something that he's been able to do. I can say that lately, within the past 2-3 weeks mostly, he's been able to do a lot better. He's sold every fight on his blog. There have been multiple times, as a matter of fact, there was one a couple days ago, and he said he was being threatened, but he was able to pull himself out of the situation. He called about it in my instant. That's what I'm he was able to manage the situation. I told him he has been a wise person, and that he now realizes what he was. So many other lives around himself with his daughter, and other people around. He has expressed to me that he does feel like he needs to make amends, and he needs to just make what he's done a little bit better, and I hope he just feels like he needs to express his sorry, expresses regret at the situation. Later that he didn't also, reaching out, well, previous to this, I had recommended my phone, so we were writing letters, showing, the regret he feels and just the sadness in the letters. It brought my heart to the point where I was like, oh man, I'm not call him, so we did do that. He has also tried to make an effort to start to become more productive in our society after his studies by securing a job. Now it is not just crawfish. During crawfish season, just normally September to June, or November to July, that is crawfish season. The other half of the year is actually farming season. They do soybeans and things like that. But he has made efforts to secure a job. Like I said, having conversations with him recently, and I do believe he understands that he has to work his way up from the bottom of the circle to reach his goal and become there. And he has had many struggles throughout his sustainability, which, I mean, that's gonna happen. It's a challenge, and for him to overcome it, that's what's gonna make him the better person.
Ms. Detros, could you wrap it up for us? We're running.
I apologize. Well, to be the person is the shorter, the person who knows that other people, the person actually with compassion. That's not the person I see today. The person I see today is a lot more compassionate, a lot more caring, and he does have the will to be better and to just change. And I think if you could just give him, I know you've given him a chance already, but if you could just give him one more chance, I mean, I'm sure you'd appreciate it. He did lose him a lot there, and I think that's what we're talking about to realize what he needs to do.
Well, thank you so much for your input and taking the time to be with us today. And he's very fortunate to have someone like you that he can rely on for that support. I think we are, the write-up that he got is a problem for him. I'll defer to Mr. Roche for his recommendation.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, based on no sex offender treatment, based on no basic good time classes, and a disciplinary write-up of December 2019 for fighting, my vote is to deny.
Mr. Wise?
At this time, he needs substance abuse treatment, his criminal history, poor supervision, and a law enforcement opposition and a moderate tiger. I vote to deny.
Thank you. And I concur. My vote is to deny based on the write-up. Now, Ms. Detros, the next time you speak to him, would you encourage him to write to the DOC asking for a transfer to a facility where he can get these programs? That would be important if he initiates that kind of request. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Michelle, would I be able to say one more thing?
That concludes our hearing. I'm sorry, we've run out of time.
I just mean about the DOC thing that you just said. We've been trying to transfer him.
I laughed a lot watching this. I think Mr. Natsa malfunctioned at some point. She just was about to implode, and then the whole Matrix thing happened to her. It's beyond me. I mean, maybe you as well. I don't know what happened here, but we of course are accustomed to Mr. Natsa stopping a survivor or a victim of talking about losing their child, of talking about being sexually assaulted, talking, oh, you've gone over your 3-minute mark by 2 seconds, stop talking. And then here she goes on for should I check how long it actually was? I mean, I've lost 8 of my brains. I have 8 brain cells left, and I've lost, I'll never get that time back. I had to watch it. So you're welcome. Okay, I just checked it. It was about 7 minutes, but felt like 37 minutes for me, even on the double, triple, quadruple speed. The whole thing is so ridiculous that we almost forget that this is a man who is locked up for what he did to a juvenile, and also someone who is given probation for what he did to a juvenile. So, the set of hearings they had today are just, I think, just a great example of how broken the system is. And I hope that we don't have to see his cousin, once we moved through marriage, give another lecture. And with that, we'll jump in. And on that note, the second I saw this guy show up for his parole hearing, I didn't know his name. I didn't have the records that Richard provided. I knew exactly what he was in for. And I think out of all the hearings that we have seen with someone who shows up with the necklace that he has on, all except for one, we know what they were in for. And that's pretty crazy. I should set up a collage of pictures of them. Because it's bizarre how it is that way. But anyways, let's jump in.
All right, good morning. Committee on Parole is reconvening. We're at Caldwell Parish Detention Center. It is Thursday, April 4th, 2024 at 10:52 a.m. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Robin, you're classified as a first felony offender. You're currently serving a 7-year sentence. You were sentenced initially in September of 2016 for indecent behavior with a juvenile. You were afforded probation that was revoked on November 2nd, 2017. Your parole eligibility was January 19, 2020. You don't earn good time, and your full term is September 19th of this year.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Okay. Would you answer Mr. Prater's question, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about getting revoked. What were you revoked for?
I was revoked for hanging out with the wrong crowd. Excuse me. Constant use of marijuana and not bearing the conditions of my parole, my probation. I'm sorry.
Okay. So you've had all of your sex offender training or your whatever you might call that, all of the classes that you need for your phase 1 and phase 2. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I've worked hard at it. I successfully completed it.
Okay.
Also,
All right. And were you on any kind of drugs or alcohol when this offense occurred?
yes, sir. I was currently intoxicated.
Okay. So do you have a substance abuse problem?
Yes, sir. I successfully completed a substance abuse program here at Caldwell Detention Center.
I asked, do you have a problem? Do you have a substance abuse problem?
Oh, no, sir. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you, Mr. Prater.
Okay.
No, sir. I do not have a substance abuse problem.
Well, you were revoked because of substance abuse also, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
And you committed this offense when you were on some sort of substance, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you don't have a problem.
Not no more, sir.
I thought that in that AA and everything else, they tell you you're always, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. You just learn to deal with it. Is that not?
Yes.
So do you have a substance abuse problem?
Yes, sir. I learned to cope with it throughout the class of substance abuse and learn how to deal with it.
That's all.
So, Mr. Robin, what is your sobriety plan?
My sobriety plan is to go out is to go back to society and complete other meetings if possible.
Wait, what you say? I'm sorry.
Complete other AA meetings if possible, and stay away from the alcoholic beverages and fight the urge not to use them.
So what do you mean attend AA meetings if possible? They're everywhere.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The meetings are everywhere. 24/7 you can find a meeting.
Yes, ma'am. I tend to for further help. I plan to attend further meetings to help me fully control the urge.
When's the last time you had a drink?
I ain't had a drink since I've been incarcerated now.
When's the last time you had a drug test?
It's been a little while since I had one. I'm sorry.
The last time you had a positive drug screen?
The last time I had a positive drug screen was I got revoked from my probation. That was back in November 2nd or 7th, October 6th, 17, when my probation officer revoked me.
All right. What's your conduct history look like? Your last write-up, when was that?
I ain't had one in the last 2 years. I ain't had one since 19.
Sergeant Kennedy, is there anything you can tell us about Mr. Robin?
Yes, ma'am. Ever since he arrived here in April of 2020, he has not had no disciplinary issues, no write-ups. He has completed all of his eligible programs for here at Caldwell. He also completed a sex offender treatment while he was at Bossier before he came here. And he was excellent in all of his programs. And that's coming from the teacher and stuff, all that. And he's actually in line to be a trustee here in the kitchen. He ain't been giving us no trouble at all.
Good to hear. What is your job now, Mr. Robin?
No, currently don't not have trustee status at the moment, ma'am.
So you're waiting for the trustee status. Okay. All right. Anything you want to say to us before we vote?
Yes, ma'am. I feel that I'm ready to go back to society and be there for my family and my little girl, which is 11 years old now. And I plan to go out, be a productive member of society and live to the best of my knowledge. I already have employment lined up if granted parole. And plan on going home and help my family as much as possible when they need the extra help around their homes.
All right.
And it's your full term date, you're gonna get out in September anyway, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so if we parole you right now, we could have certain sanctions or certain requirements on that. Whereas if you get out your full term, then you don't, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Well, it'd almost be worth taking a chance on letting you get out 5 months early to demand that you go to AA programs for me, because I want to make sure that you understand. And I think what may be a communication problem here between you and I, as far as, do you have a substance abuse problem? I think you realize you do, but I'm not certain of that. But I want you to, my vote will be that you are granted parole with the condition that you go to, what's a reasonable number? Week. Three AA programs a week. And that your parole officer monitor those and keep us informed to make sure you go to them. And well, I think that's the only hole that we got on you. And that's it.
Mr. Tillis?
Mr. Robin, how old are you?
I am 33 years old, sir.
Do you remember when you started using drugs?
I was at the age of 16 when I started using drugs.
And how long did you stay on drugs when you were using them?
I stayed on them. I stayed using drugs until the time I was incarcerated. But since I have been incarcerated, sir, I've learned. I accept full responsibility of my actions and my past actions, and I have had time to reflect on them.
Yeah, he's voted to grant a special condition that we attend 3A.
I concur.
All right, Mr. Robin, when I looked at your record, you were a definite no, but talking to you, I agree with Mr. Prater. I think that it's important that you be required to tend to your substance abuse problems. So my vote today would be to grant, along with my colleagues, to grant your parole and require as a special condition that you do attend 3 AA meetings per week. And I'd also like to add a curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. if there's no objection.
No.
And that you have no contact with the victim in this case. Do you understand those special conditions?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sorry, you've been granted parole, and that's based on for me, it's based on the positive remarks by Sergeant Kennedy. So good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
That concludes our business there at Caldwell. We're going to sign off at 11:03. Thank you, Sergeant Kennedy.
Yes, ma'am.
Hallelujah. At least his second cousin, once we moved through marriage, wasn't there to give us a sermon. I'm grateful for that. But really, what's absolutely insane is that there's no mention of a victim. The victim doesn't exist as far as everyone's concerned. And one might think, well, he was given probation, so it's probably wasn't that big of a deal. Maybe it was like a Romeo and Juliet thing, or maybe it was like, it couldn't have been that bad. He got probation. But we know better because we just saw what a probation looks like, what a DA and a judge would say. Sure, we'll give you probation. You're 30, she's 12. Sure, probation. The system's broken. We saw it here. Now, the parole board, I get why they, granted. I don't even know why he was so emotional for getting accepted. It's like, dude, you have 7 months left. There are a lot of people that would have rather not had the parole, right? So maybe he does want to change. Maybe he's happy to go to AA 3 times a week. I don't know. But I just don't feel like I want to give any goodwill without actually knowing the details. There's no questions about the victim. No, what did he do? No mention of remorse. Nothing. It doesn't exist. And that's just disturbing. We're going to see one more out of Louisiana from today's docket in the same category that we've been seeing. And then we're going to go over to Connecticut to see something that is going to probably, maybe, possibly upset you more than everything we've seen here. If you're not familiar, I do have that second channel where we cover primarily Connecticut hearings, and there's something in the water there. It's scary. Actually makes me appreciate Louisiana Border Patrols a lot more, if you can imagine that. So let's jump into the next hearing, and then we'll do Connecticut.
I had an ankle monitor on since the day I've been on parole. I've not even left St. Tammany Parish. I have not failed any drug test that he's given me. I've attended every class he's told me to attend. I've done everything I could. The only thing I did was I had drank a beer. And I told Mr. Everly that.
We are about to watch the parole revocation hearing of a man who's violated parole again. Are they going to revoke him? It's certainly interesting. We have the sheriff and the preacher, the 2 new parole board members, and of course, Miss Renatza. Let's jump in.
It says on December 1st, 2023, you failed to refrain from the illegal use of drugs or alcohol. You were located at your primary residence about 10 a.m. and were asked when you last drank any alcohol. You stated, I may have had a beer last week. When asked again when you last drank alcohol, you stated you may have had one yesterday. You were given a breathalyzer test, which showed 0.15 blood alcohol content. Upon further questioning, you admitted to drinking a 16-ounce beer that morning. How do you plead to that violation? 4D.
I'm guilty.
Okay. Then there's one listed as 4E, which says on December 4th, 2023, you failed to refrain from the illegal use of drugs or alcohol. You were located at your primary residence at about 1:30 p.m. and were asked if you drank any alcohol. You stated you had not drank alcohol and were given an alcohol test with breathalyzer, which showed a 0.07 blood alcohol content. When further questioned, you stated, okay, I had one beer last night and admitted to having one beer this morning. How do you plead to violating condition 4E?
I plead guilty on it, but I had a.
Yeah, we can talk about it when we start asking questions. You can explain.
All right.
We have number 7, which says you had failed to truthfully and promptly answer all questions directed to you by your parole officer. At monthly contacts on December 1st, 23 and December 4th, 23, you were asked if you'd been drinking and you lied, stating you had not drank alcohol. However, when pressed, you admitted to drinking the day of that contact. So how do you plead to violating condition number 7?
Yes, ma'am.
Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
And then last is condition number 10. You last made a payment to your supervision fees July 7, 2023. You're currently $778.50 in arrears on those fees. How do you plead to violating condition number 10?
Guilty.
Okay, all right. Do you have Ms. Henley on the phone yet? We're trying to get her now, so we're gonna go ahead and start with our interview. When she joins us, we'll allow her to speak. Would you your practice questions?
Ma'am,
Good morning. How are you?
good morning.
Okay, I wanted to talk to you just a moment to find out. Part of what we do here is determine if a person is willing to follow the rules. And of course, you didn't follow the rules, the reason you originally got arrested, and then you were told that you needed to do certain things in order to abide by that, and you didn't do those things. And then you served some time and you got out again, and then you were told not to do certain things like drinking, and you were to pay your money and not to lie. And so it appears that you really have a problem following rules. And I'm trying to figure out what we can do to assist you in figuring out how you're gonna live amongst free people that are not in a jail. How are you gonna live and follow the rules? Do you have anything to say about that? Can you tell me why you have such a problem following rules?
Yes, I didn't drink I wasn't like a slush or drunk. I wasn't drinking like that. I'd had a beer every now and then. And I had told Mr. Everly that. And in July, the reason why we went in the rear on the payment to the parole fees, me and my wife was in a real bad car accident, hit by a semi truck. After the accident, it was bad. After the accident, I had told Mr. Everly that, but things are gonna be tough right now, boss. It was all kind of stuff going on after the accident. And I had explained to him that I would be slow on paying it, but I also told Mr. Everly, me and my wife told him made sure he understood that at the first of this year, we were going to catch it all up and get everything done. But that'd give us enough time to get back on our feet, get back going, have a vehicle. And the drinking the beer is, I've drank beer for many a years, and I know that I wasn't supposed to, and I had something I wanted to read to y'all, but I wasn't, wasn't mad at Mr. Everly or nothing. I had a beer. At first I wanted to tell him I didn't, but I just couldn't stand there and keep doing that. I had to tell him the truth, and he knew that because he would stand there and talk to me. And so I told him that we would that I would start some AA, and we had looked up for some classes to go to that my insurance would pay for. And the morning that he locked me up, that's what me and her was in the process. We done had to found the classes and everything. We were fixing to leave. If he had not come when he did, I'd have been gone to Mandeville to the about the AA meeting and the alcohol class. And he knew that. He seen us. We was out back on our patio, and not one time have I done anything like me and my wife argue. We just don't do that. We've been together 39 years, And I drank a beer, but believe you me, this right here, it got my attention. This ain't not. And then she told me about a scram device. Then my wife told me about that a few days ago. I didn't know nothing about it. I had an ankle monitor on since the day I've been on parole. I've not even left St. Tammany Parish. I have not failed any drug test that he's given me. I've attended every class he's told me to attend. I've done everything I could. The only thing I did was I had drank a beer. And I told Mr. Everly that. Never once has he seen me doing this. Never once has he found it in my house. I had a beer. Most time it's during a football game is when I've had a beer. And that would be on my patio on my backyard. in my backyard. That was it. And, Mr. Everly, I understand his job and everything. I know that I signed a thing stating that I would refrain from, drinking alcohol. But the first time, and I had read on the thing, I said the first time he gave me a 3-day sanction. And then the second time he gave me a 10-day sanction. And I had read, I said, well, if I had known about the scram device and all this, then I'd have went to that extent if it had kept me from drinking a beer. You know, if that would have been what I needed to not drink, that's what I would have done. You know, just to prove that I can go without drinking a beer and do the right thing. You know, but after that accident, it was tough for me and my wife, you know. We didn't have car payments and stuff then. We don't owe bills. The only bill I owe is I owe this parole fee. Me and my wife, that's all we owe. Our bills is always paid. And then we come up with now we got a new car payment. Now that I'm locked up, you know, it's limited now just because she's by herself and she's on a fixed income.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. Let me just ask this for my own benefit. Back when you originally got in trouble for the serious charge, back when was that, 95? When was it?
It was a felon to register charge.
Yeah. Before that, whatever caused you to require to be registered? Okay, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, I don't want to get into a lot of details about that because that's not what today is about. But at any point during that entire process, did you ever state or admit or discuss that you had been drinking during that time?
Oh yeah, I was like 23 years old. Yeah, I not at the present time, but I did. I did drink beer then.
Okay, were you drinking beer when the offense occurred that you were found guilty of?
Yeah. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
That's all I need to know about that. Okay, fast forward back to the rule breaking, and I'm really having a problem because I read your wife's letter and talking about the fact that you drink, you know, part of the response to drinking is the wreck and all of that.
Yeah,
it sounds like you got a real problem.
I had quit drinking for a while.
But it sounds like if you're saying, and you earlier said that you'd wear a scram bracelet if that's what it would take to get you to stop drinking beer. So that tells me you can't stop on your own. So which tells me also that's a problem.
Yeah, I need to go to AA and stuff. I need to make sure I attend that. That's just part of being responsible and being a responsible adult. I understand this. And my wife, you know, bless her heart, she don't drink, you know. So she wants the best and I want the best too for the both of us. You know, we've been married 39 years. So, you know, and she asked me today when I talked to y'all to, you know, and I said, if this is what it takes to prove that I'm going to follow y'all's rules. And I had quit drinking a while. I don't drink whiskey or nothing. I quit drinking for a while and then I started back drinking. Then I quit, you know, went back and forth for a while, you know. So then after the accident, I started drinking beer again. So.
But sound like to me that you'd be the textbook case of denial. And that's what I need.
Mr. Henley, would you consider yourself an alcoholic?
Well, yeah, I would.
Well, I think so. You said you quit drinking for a while, but you really didn't quit drinking because you were drinking in the morning and your officer asked you about it. Why did you lie to the officer initially?
Well, at first I said no, and then I stand there talking to him, and I just couldn't. I had to tell him the truth. You know, I didn't even feel right by telling him no. You know, he knew this. Me and Mr. Everly, he knows this.
Okay. We have your wife on the phone. She's on the phone. She had trouble getting in on Zoom. Miss Henley, can you hear us? Yes, ma'am, I can. All right, is there anything you'd like us to know? Would you like to speak on, your husband's behalf this morning?
Yeah, I do believe that he really wants to stop drinking, and we've done discuss that. We're gonna get, we've worked on the church, but I'm trying to find a new church that we both feel comfortable in. And his, like I said, he's a good guy. He does drink, and I'm proud of him. This is the first time he's ever told me he wanted to go to AA. I mean, I got faith in him, and I'm willing to do anything that he needs to get done. And I know there's other things that we can do around here in the community that will help him get into, not wanting to drink. Because he's been doing it for a long time. He had a lot on him when he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Being the sole provider after his dad died. And it's just bum after that. And I really do have faith in him this time that this truly the first time he's ever admitted to me that he's had a problem.
Oh, all right. Well, that's a good step then.
And when we get done with the parole, like hopefully within the next year, our grandkids don't live close, but we do have some that live close in Mississippi. And they love him to death. They talk to him on the phone and all kinds of stuff. And they just want to see their grandfather do right.
All right. Well, thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you taking the time to call in and tell us these things. Mr. Henley, anything you'd like to say to us before we vote?
No, ma'am. I just hope that if given a chance, if it takes wearing the scram device or whatever it takes, that I'm able to go home and me and my wife can, because we're going to do it. We're going to do this together. We've been doing it 39 years. We're going to do this together, and she's my 100. I love her that much, and she's really been at me about it. And if that's, I'm going to do everything I can. And I told her, I said, I don't even know what it costs, but I would like to have my freedom and be given this chance. I know I haven't been perfect. I haven't been, I know I haven't been perfect, but I'm telling you, this is a wake up call right here. This since December the 4th, this is a wake up call. This is bigger than I've had in a long time.
Okay, sir. I think we are prepared to vote. Mr. Prater will be voting first.
I don't really have much problem voting to revoke. I just don't, I think you've got a problem that you're not admitting to on your alcohol. I think you admit to us, but I just, that's my vote.
Mr. Tiller?
I concur.
I agree, Mr. Henley. You were correct. I noted that you had the ankle monitor, you were doing the sex offender treatment, but you really have not faced your alcohol problem. And so my vote today also is to revoke, and I'm going to make a strong recommendation that you be afforded some inpatient DOC treatment. And you'll have an opportunity to come back before the board once you complete that treatment. But you need the treatment. For us, it's not about getting out. We got to get out and want to stay out. Do the right thing. Today, sir, your parole's been revoked. That concludes our business in St. Tammany. We're going to sign off at 9:29. It's one side.
All I can do.
Keep your head up there. We'll revisit it another time.
Oh, yeah.
Take your classes, do what you gotta do.
You know what's interesting, and I didn't tell you what crime he committed before jumping into the hearing because I wanted you to have the same experience that I had, which was not knowing what he was originally in for. I actually felt for him. I felt they were being too tough on him. I was like, he seems to be doing everything he's supposed to be doing. I don't know. There was something about him that was likable. But then you find out that he is initially locked up for the sex offense, and that kind of that feeling I had just melts away. I don't know if you felt the same way about him being kind of likable I thought he was being honest, except, with the beer, it was like, man, you're probably doing more than just drinking 1 or 2 beers. You have one beer, and if you have just one beer in the morning and you can't hide that you had just one beer from your parole officer, man, it's probably more like you've been drinking a couple of cases by the time the parole officer found you. And that just shows there's something, I think, with sex offenders where they can be very, I guess criminals in general can be. But let's go over the information here. And that is that in Alabama, this is dated all the way back to 2013. So an Alabama man living in Missouri pleads guilty to failure to register as a sex offender. So he pled guilty to an indictment by a federal grand jury, failure to register to a sex offender, announced the U.S. Attorney Dana. And what's interesting about this article is we never see official documents like this. So it's, it's quite interesting. It's like the U.S. Attorney made a press release about this. I wonder what was going on politically that made them want to do that. But anyways, Henley faces a maximum term imprisonment of 10 years, fine of $250,000, up to 3 years supervised release. Sentencing is scheduled October 9, 2013 before the district court. And I bet you that's what he's backing up time for. According to a document filed in federal court in 1995, Henley pled guilty to sexual assault in the second degree, a Class B felony in the circuit court of Covington, Alabama. Henley was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment under the Habitual Offender Act. Prior to Henley's release in 2001, he was advised that he would have to register and notify law enforcement authorities of his address for the next 25 years. In October 2012, he moved from Alabama to Louisiana and failed to notify law enforcement authorities of his move. On January 11, 2013, Deputy U.S. Marshal Henley was walking along the Lawn Drive in Louisiana. Henley was placed under arrest and advised of his Miranda rights. Marshall confirmed that Henley had not registered neither Jefferson Parish or any law enforcement agency in the state of Louisiana. Further, Henley failed to notify authorities in Alabama that he had moved to Louisiana. This case was brought as part of a project. There we go. See, this is exactly why there was a press release, because there was some new initiative or something. This case was brought as part of Project Safe Childhood, a nationwide initiative launched in May of 2006 by the Department of Justice to combat the growing epidemic of child sexual exploitation and abuse. Growing epidemic. So why do they continue to give little slap on the wrist sentences, huh? Led by the United States Attorney Offices and the Criminal Division of Child Exploitation and Obscenity Section, Project Safe Childhood marshals federal, state, and local resources to locate, apprehend, and prosecute individuals. So we don't have any information on his initial case, who it was it a child, all those details. But if you look at the dates of it, it would seem, if he says he was married to his wife for 30-something, 6 years, it means that his wife stayed with him through this happening, it seems. But there you have it. I was wondering, wow, a press release from, a big statement. Why? And there you go. There you have it. It was because it suited them. And that's what the more and more and more I learn about this stuff is that the people in charge, like the DAs and whatnot, they really, 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 I don't think, most of them, I think, really don't care. It's all about, they're kind of like just their own marketing executives. Anyways, with that, I'll let you